This podcast is a part of the PodMania podcasting network. Check out podmania.co.uk to check out more of our great podcasts, features, reviews, match ratings and previews spanning the crazy and diverse world of professional wrestling.
Hello, my name is Simon Miller from What Culture Wrestling, and you are listening to the PodMania Pro Wrestling Podcast, and you better keep listening to it. Why? Here's why.
You're listening to the PodMania Pro Wrestling Podcast, a sample of the best pro wrestling podcasts we can produce on our tiny budget. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, CastBox, and all other podcast platforms. If it's wrestling you want, check out more of our great content at podmania.co.uk. Let's do this.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the PodMania podcast. I'm your host, Rob Good, and I'm joined by Chris O'Brien and our own resident Paul Daniels, the magician, the magic show himself, Garth Jackson. Didn't think that I was going to bring that up, did you? I want to know all about this fucking magic show that you were doing.
I still think it's code and you have a secret OnlyFans.
I think, you're aiming too high thinking that I could be doing magic. It's actually my 7-year-old son doing his magic show.
So,
Okay.
That's far less entertaining than you actually on a Microsoft Teams call to whoever, this person in New Zealand, and you just doing really, really shit Poundland magic. It would just be absolutely amazing.
It's like you get companies to merge. It's like
That would be like
companies got merged.
That would be like immeasurably more exciting.
Is that how you got your job? You just turned up with a pack of cards.
Yeah, just pick a card. What is it? Yeah, that's what I was thinking of as well.
No, here's what you do: you turn up a pack of cards, but they're all the same card.
So, for those who don't know, Garth said that he couldn't join us for an earlier podcast because he was doing a magic show, and that is legitimately his excuse, which might be the greatest excuse I've ever heard in my life. So, well done, Garth. Anyway, today's podcast, we've taken a little bit of it, of a different tack with what we're doing today. Obviously, this week, The Undertaker, it was announced that he was retiring from in-ring competition. Now, it wasn't done in the conventional way by having one last match and then a big pomp and circumstance retirement ceremony. Obviously, partly, I imagine, in because of the current circumstances with COVID-19. But it was announced on the last episode of the Last Ride documentary. He's basically said that he's done in ring, can't see himself getting back into the ring, and wants to spend more time with his family. So, Garth, 30 years of The Undertaker in the WWE, and that's it.
And I've been here for every one of them.
That's a sad state of affairs, isn't it?
I was here way before.
I was here when Antonio Inoki.
Unbelievable. And the fact that he's never been off the top. Really, he's always been like the main, if not sort of headline attraction. Even his Mania matches, where he's not the headline, but he is still the main event. Like, just incredible. And I think with the documentary, the way they've done it, I think it's opened him up to see how much he actually genuinely does like love wrestling, like properly. Everything he's done is to protect it and make it special for the fans and stuff. And like watching it, like getting like proper emotion on the last one, just thinking like this guy's doing everything. The amount of surgeries and shit he's had. Yeah, he's probably made a shit ton of money, but he loves it. Totally loves it. He comes back. He comes back at the drop of a hat. And I think the way they did it on the, obviously spoilers if anyone who hasn't seen the documentary, the way they've done it, and this is pretty much the wind down. I think that's really clever, and it's him doing it in his way, in a sort of candid and open way, and you can see how he gets sort of quite emotional about it at times. So the stuff that turned up in that I just had no idea about, and it was just really good, and just probably the greatest. Like, I know there's obviously talk of like you've got Bret Hart, HBK, Undertaker's more important than those people, I think.
He's not quite Taichi, but yeah, he's pretty important.
He's one of those people, like I was saying to Chris before we came on, that my girlfriend knows that my girlfriend's mate knew that the Undertaker had retired. It was so weird, and like they've got no idea what to do, anything to do with wrestling. My brother, who is not a wrestling fan by any stretch of the imagination, he has seen every single one of Undertaker's WrestleMania matches. He's one of those people that you mentioned wrestling, no matter how much you hate the WWE, how much you despise them, you will watch the Undertaker's matches.
Yeah.
You will know about the Undertaker, and you will know that he is a pillar of that industry. And to have that gone, he was the last one really of that guard, of that era that people were holding on to. And that's really quite sad. I mean, obviously Kane never had an official retirement, so we live in hope of Kane's resurrection and subsequent title run. But Chris, what was your... Because you... Obviously, because we're all very different ages, we all sort of know Undertaker from different eras. Now, unless I'm very much mistaken, you're very much a 2007 SmackDown era Undertaker fan.
Yeah, where he was basically like an elder statesman, like like the old westerns that I definitely haven't seen. But like like the old man in like the rocking chair and cowboy hat, and he steps in whenever the town's having a conflict. Taker was kind of like that. He was actually in, believe it or not, the first ever World Championship match I ever saw.
Can I guess it was with either Batista or Edge?
It was Batista, because that's all he did. That's the only people he faced.
I was just going to say, for about 3 years, they seem to be the only people he fought, and JBL.
And JBL, Jeff Hardy, very, very occasionally. Rey Mysterio once, and then he sat on his face and broke it, not in that way. But yeah, it was against Batista, and like it's the first like one-on-one match where I was like, okay, I get wrestling now. I get why this is so cool, because Batista came out, and you're like, oh my god, look at this animal, look at this beast. And then Undertaker comes out, my bong happens, and you have fucking chills up and down you. You like, it's to my 10-year-old mind, there's no one more legit than the Undertaker. Like, it's like legitimately striking figure, even without all the bells and whistles. Like, he literally felt like the most important guy in the room whenever he walked into it. And I'm sorry if you two disagree, but I definitely, like, my generation got best Taker from like 2007 to 2010, 2011-ish, when he was, because that's when he started having banger after banger at Mania. Like, he had his Batista match, which I'm sorry, that's his first great Mania matches. There's no real great, well, apart from Orton before that, and then you had the Edge match, which is an underrated classic of a main event, and then you had, of course, the two Michaels matches, the two Triple H matches, and yeah, just amazing. When I think of big gold bout, I think of Edge, Batista, and Undertaker, basically. So
yeah, the thing with Taker was he seemed to have better matches in smaller pay-per-views.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Because if you think leading up to WrestleMania 22, he had two matches with Angle, both of which were fucking great. Because of course the one was Kurt Angle.
Seeing that he had that
casket match with Mark Henry.
Oh god, the world's strongest tombstone.
Wrong.
Did he? I don't know what Mania it was where he had the match with Triple H. Was it in the cage?
28.
The Hound 28.
2001.
2001? No, that was just a no hold barred one at X7.
That was class. That was really good.
That was really good. I forgot about that one. Also, his Ric Flair match. You know, it turns out I was talking bollocks.
Actually, scratch that rewind.
But I don't think you can really argue with like my generation of Taker being like the best Taker, really. Like, can you? You can try. That's what I think, God, if you say Hulkamania era, I'm going to go up and cast it and slap you.
I don't know, like, every era has had its moments. Obviously, the time when he teamed up with Jake Roberts for whatever reason,
Because
to
you
crash
trusted him.
to crash the wedding.
That was amazing. That was amazing. So good.
So fucking random.
No, made no sense whatsoever, but still amazing.
Do you remember when Undertaker he lost the casket match to I think it was Yokozuna,
It was.
and then literally ascended to the fucking heavens.
Oh, that was amazing. I watched that live, and it was like, oh, this is the height of pantomime.
Yeah, I never ever want to hear from you again. But wrestling was more legit back in your day.
What are you talking about? He was ascending to the heavens. He was a dead man.
God's not real, Garth. I hate to break it to you.
I used to love it when he used to wear that white mask as well.
The Phantom of
When
the
he,
Opera
like,
mask.
When he broke his face.
I'm surprised he didn't like kidnap Sonny and go up to the rafters.
When I kidnapped Steph and tried to marry him.
Oh god, yeah, that was so.
Oh my god!
Crucified Stone Cold Steve Austin.
We will get to Ministry Taker. I'm not quite ready to discuss Ministry Taker yet.
Like when I was just looking back through the records and like his history and stuff, he's like the periods between his title runs were ridiculous. Like, so by sort of 2002, he'd only had 3 titles. It was like his third title reign.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
He held the actual WWF Championship twice. He held it. He beat Psycho Sid for it at WrestleMania 13. And then he won it with the help of Ric Flair this Tuesday in Texas.
Yeah.
In
Ric Flair
1991, I think.
Yeah. Was that against...
That was Hogan.
Aye.
Yeah, and then Hogan won it straight back, because of course he fucking did.
Want to know something slightly amazing?
Of course.
So I pulled up his Pro Fight DB thing earlier, and one thing Pro Fight DB does that I think is really cool is it gives you little listings and like stats. So Undertaker has won 68% of any match he's ever had. And he's won 70% of matches in WWF and 60% of matches in WWE. Like, while it's been WWE, he won 173 televised matches and only lost 64 times compared to that. And I bet you most of them was in random tag matches. Also, he had a match in OVW. I did not know that.
I think for anyone to retire after 30 years and to have a winning percentage of any kind, it could be 51-49, to have a winning percentage with the amount of matches that he's had is fairly spectacular.
Yeah, he only has an overall losing percentage in 2 promotions. I want you to guess what they are.
He's only had what?
He only has a losing percentage in 2 promotions.
WCW.
It's no, actually, and there's no WCW listings. But in NWA, he won 62% of his listed matches.
Was he not in or just there? Was he not in like Mid South or Jim Crockett or something like that?
That's what NWA falls under.
Oh right, yeah.
OVW,
he's won 100% of his matches in OVW. Tag match with him and Kane against DDP and Leviathan, who is Batista. So.
Batista.
Leviathan, what a name! Go on, who? So, which promotions?
So it was New Japan. He lost a match as Punisher Dice Morgan with Scott Hall against Masa Saito and Shinya Hashimoto at the New Japan Hiroshima show in March 1990. Mm. And also the USWA, which is Jarrett's promotion, where he was beaten by Dutch Mantel and Steve Austin against... he was the Punisher, and I can't believe this, his partner was called the Soul Taker.
The Soul Taker?
The Soul Taker?
And the Soul Taker is the Godfather.
Brilliant.
Oh, that's outstanding.
And he lost a singles match as the Master of Pain to Dutch Mantel.
Master of Pain.
That's
Well, him and
amazing.
Godfather, Papa Shango, whatever, like busy mates, aren't they?
Oh yeah, he had that. What was it called? The something clan.
The BSM.
Yeah, because he had it across his chest, didn't he? He also
Yeah.
had Sarah across his neck. That's all.
Have you heard some of the stories from that BSM thing?
Oh, but some
Just
amazing, like for
Absolute
example,
badasses.
it's not just but Kevin Nash. Okay, so wrestlers weren't allowed to go to strip clubs, which seems fair because they were family friendly at the time. But Kevin Nash convinced like X-Pac and Scott Hall to go to one, and they turn up, and who's sitting there? Undertaker.
And he's like, what?
What are you
He's
going to do
just
about it?
You're gonna fucking tell me? What I love is the story of around WrestleMania 14. Shawn Michaels was apparently being a bit of a dick. It's a surprise, and he was gonna like shoot on Steve Austin or something. So Undertaker, to make sure he wouldn't do this, told him he would beat the shit out of him if he didn't come back. If he came back through that curtain with the title, and to make sure Shawn Michaels knew this, stood at Gorilla and started taping up his fist right as Shawn Michaels was about to go for this match.
Excellent.
I
Love
think
it. Well, he was there during the whole Bret Hart screw job thing, wasn't he? Where, like, basically they all liked to take it. He was like, "Did you know about this? Did you know about this?" And he kind of sort of told Bret just fucking spark Vince out.
He also like Wrestler Court. There's some unbelievable stories from Wrestler Court.
I love the idea of it.
The idea of it is funny, but the reality of it is very disturbing.
Oh yeah, totally.
But like the idea of like Edge and Christian gave action figures to a producer, so they then had to bribe Undertaker with a bottle of whiskey.
and then I mean, oh god, hey, brilliant.
you say, Chris, that your era's Undertaker was the best one, and
that feels like a long time ago now.
I mean, we don't exactly have a leg to stand on. The problem was in the Undertaker's early career was that Vince openly didn't see him as a championship threat and saw him as a person to take on the big men. I mean, you look at his 93 through 95 run, and his list of competitors, he took on Yokozuna, Mr. Hughes, himself, King
Giant
Kong
Gonzalez.
Bundy, Giant Gonzalez, and again, himself in the main event of SummerSlam. So you look at that, and then, of course, you know, he's had matches with Sid, Big Boss Man, that have all been duds. They just saw him as a person to take sort of this carny attraction. And I think once he got past being this carny attraction, obviously being a legit zombie is always going to be a little bit of a carny attraction. But once we got over the ridiculous pomp and circumstance that the 90s had given him, that was when we started to get the legit badass Taker that we all loved. I mean, around the Attitude Era, even with the Ministry of Darkness, which again, we'll get into, I just think that he was better there because he was seen as more of a legitimate threat. Even Big Evil and, you know, the American Badass, which was met with divisive opinions at the time.
I loved that. I loved it.
I loved it, yeah, because it was something different. It showed a completely different side of him, and you did see him as a legit badass then. You really, really did, and that is actually my favourite Taker.
It worked in the context of the show at the time as well.
It really did, and the way they wrote him out to bring him back as the Deadman was perfect.
Also, very quickly, how great was his theme at that time?
Oh, amazing.
Is that you done it now?
You done it now.
You've gone and made a big mistake.
Like, no wrestling fan can hear that and not try and do the voice.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Or whenever they
And
hear the bell and they go, "Dead man walking." You have to do it. You have to.
He even got Limp Bizkit over. Like,
Or even when you hear, keep rolling, rolling, rolling on.
That was amazing. That theme, it shouldn't have worked with Undertaker because, you know, Limp Bizkit are, I still listen to them, I'll be perfectly honest, but they are hateful as a band. But
I fucking used to hate them, but I love that song for that.
That theme was
Mania.
amazing. Mania 19, where they played him onto the stage live when he took on A-Train and the Big Show in his 2-on-1 handicap match. One of the lesser known street matches.
You say Limp Bizkit's off. I once matched with someone on Tinder whose favourite album was Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavoured water.
That is no one's favourite album.
That was this person's favourite album.
That's not even Limp Bizkit's favourite Limp Bizkit album.
I mean, name one good Limp Bizkit album.
What's that one? The Chocolate Starfish, or whatever it's called? That's the only one I know.
That's the one I just mentioned. Chocolate Starfish and hot dog flavoured water.
What shit album names?
That's one album.
New metal. Ugh.
So we've just got Garth's opinion on that.
Yeah, I like how just randomly in every podcast, Old Man Garth comes out, and it's like the most random things. They don't expect it to come out, and then he's just like, going,
I was still in full indie mode at that time.
You're still in full indie.
I was just going to say, what do you mean you were at that point?
You're in a fucking indie tribute band.
I was just going to say.
No, a 90s tribute band. We play Spice Girls and fucking dance music.
Ladies and gentlemen, go look up Loaded 90 Tribute Band on Facebook. Nice little plug for you. But yeah, screeching away. But with American Badass Taker, it's a weird one. For every great thing about American Badass Taker, there's a bad thing. Like for every Brock Lesnar feud, there's Vince McMahon saying he's going to have his wife raped, which is literally a thing that happens.
Oh, yeah. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't a perfect run. I mean, we must never, ever, ever forget that choke slam on Hulk Hogan at Judgment Day.
I mean, Hulk Hogan's fault, to be honest.
I mean,
so he couldn't get up.
It's the worst, tamest. It's basically, he picks him up like a small child and lays him... We talked about worst finishes on a podcast that's coming out on Tuesday. And genuinely, just this finish, not the chokeslam in general, just this one in a bubble is one of the worst. I mean, it was a shit match anyway. It got 2 stars on the PodMania rating scale. But yeah, I know what you mean, Chris. We're not viewing the Undertaker with rose-tinted spectacles, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Is my 2 favourite things about this run. One, that we used him to try get Nathan Jones over.
Oh yeah,
Nathan Jones.
And 2, the 2 things that coincided at Mania 19 when we had Limp Bizkit playing out, and who was introduced as WWE's favourite band in the whole world. Like, did you get more sarcastic?
I mean, let's be honest here. It was Limp Bizkit, and then it became Saliva, which is even worse.
Ugh.
So it's just got the name of these. But I bet he hates Code Orange.
Who?
Basically their NXT's favourite band at the moment. Them and Poppy.
To be fair, Poppy's great.
No, she's
not.
not.
Yeah, she is.
No,
I'll fight you.
All sounds the same.
No, it doesn't. Fuck off.
You listen to Oasis, who've made a career of singing the same song over and over again at different paces.
On the way down to fucking Blackpool, Garth, me and you had a massive conversation about AC/DC, and we have the same 3 songs. Don't get me wrong, they're great.
That's great.
Songs.
Love AC/DC.
Anyway, I don't know. Like, I think Undertaker was at his best as sort of elder statesman Taker, which sort of started with Big Evil and American Badass. But, like, it's weird because, like, in the years leading up to American Badass, he was very, very, very clearly wanted that to happen. Have you seen that promo he's cut when he was teaming with Big Show? About how he went to the desert on bikes and left men for dead or something. And it's sort of like, oh, God, we've come a long way from fucking Paul Bearer.
Come a long way from the widest tie known to man.
Oh, but wide. Oh, my God.
And those purple gloves. Why were they purple?
Have you seen Have you watched the latest episode of the documentary?
I haven't watched any of it.
Oh, it's so funny when he's talking about those early days, and he's talking about he brought his dad to a show, and he's putting the makeup on. He looked over and his dad just sitting there shaking his head.
Sorry, Dad, I'm just going to go to makeup, and you see his dad. Oh, for God's sake!
He's like, he gave up a scholarship and a basketball sort of scholarship and all this to do this.
Amazing. But looking back at his debut, just looking back at it now, we talk about Paul Bearer, which, that combination of those two is absolutely iconic. But let us not forget that he was not The Undertaker's first manager. No. Brother Love.
I love you.
Who thought that was a good idea? Genuinely.
It was him, and it was the fact that he was Ted DiBiase's secret partner.
Yeah, it just made no sense.
You know what I do kind of love, though, is that Brother Love was I'm very clearly not equipped to manage the Undertaker, so here's Undertaker's new manager, Paul Bearer. And it's yes, okay, that makes sense. By the way,
it's funny watching that documentary, and you realise how much of a hand Pritchard's had in the Undertaker's sort of career. Massive.
I was listening to his podcast, and his podcast is great. And he was talking about, going back to what Chris said, he was talking about going to Big Evil. And the problem he had with the Deadman gimmick was that it was very one-dimensional. And if you watch a lot of his early matches, they are quite one-dimensional. They're quite a slow pace. And he wanted to do more than that, which was why Big Evil happened. And they really, really, really had to persuade him to go back to the Deadman gimmick. To say, look, trust me, it will draw money, it will be great. And it took them, properly talking him into it. It took a year to talk him into it. And they said that, you can still wrestle how you wrestle as Big Evil, but you will, for all intents and purposes, be the Deadman, the person that, everyone knows, the Undertaker that everyone knows. And it's just quite interesting to see that, the gimmick that he was most known for, he didn't particularly like.
Well, he's an old schooler, isn't he? He'd hate a gimmick like that.
Yeah. Well, if you look at his, especially later on, when he was still, classed as the Deadman, you look at the Boneyard match, and he's Deadman only in name there, really, isn't he? I mean, you've got the bandana, you've got the bike. And as he progressed later and later throughout the Deadman gimmick, I mean, he came back at WrestleMania 20 against Kane as the Deadman, and that was 2004. So you look at those matches, Chris, against Batista and Edge and Mark Henry, and going towards the Shawn Michaels ones. He was known as the Undertaker and the Deadman in name only because he still wrestled a far higher pace, a far better pace, let's be perfectly honest, and was therefore having far better matches. And I think that's a big thing in it, to be honest.
There's this great call JBL always used to say is every time Undertaker walked out, and it was he wears his battle scars, his badges of honor. I'm the image of Deadman Undertaker back then was literally just sort of elder statesman. He's going to come and just put you in your place because that's what he does. By the way, very quickly, going back to Paul Bearer, have you ever seen the outtake video of him and Jerry Lawler talking about Kane and Undertaker and just laughing about it?
No.
They would laugh, Paul Bearer was in character, staying in character and talking about fucking Undertaker walking in on Paul Bearer banging his mum. I'll find it and send you it. It's fucking hilarious.
They do social outtakes on the Undertaker documentary.
I've seen the one with Kane.
Really good. They're just quite them fucking around in a barn where he's knocking up a casket and stuff like that, and just daft shit. Just looks like
he said knocking up. I'm very glad he said casket. Jesus Christ.
The legit had a good time doing it.
Have you heard the story that Paul Bearer? Paul Bearer's nickname for Taker was Wendy, and apparently this was because of the ginger hair, and he looked like the girl from the Wendy's adverts. But apparently he was the only person who could say that.
I was going to say, imagine someone else saying that.
Can you imagine a rookie coming in and going, Wendy, and just Undertaker just absolutely destroying them. Absolutely destroying them. So, just to bring a little bit more structure, What is your favourite Undertaker moment, Garth?
One moment.
If you had to pick.
Honestly, it's hard.
But the questions will get harder.
Oh, God. Do you know what? There's so many good ones, but there's one that... And it's not... It's as much about Taker as it is about someone else, and it's when Kane debuted. Because it seemed to sort of open up this sort of... Undertaker was always quite sort of mysterious, but then you had the murmurs of Kane. But then when Kane comes out, then your mind starts going, shit, where's this going to go? What's the story's going to come out of it? Like, look at the size of this motherfucker. Like, nobody to that point really had stood sort of nose to nose. And I remember watching it live. I remember watching it, and I was recording it at the same time on my VHS. And then the next day watching it and just rewinding that bit where Kane comes and rips the door off and just looking at it and thinking this is going to be absolutely fucking amazing.
On one of our very first podcasts, Garth, that was voted on #1 debut.
Yeah, just I love the whole thing of what it does for Undertaker, because obviously up to that point, he'd been there for what?
7 years.
7 years, so it's not like he was new and they were obviously having to find stuff for him to do, and then this just opened up this massive sort of huge possibilities of story, like his brother and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's
the Taker cinematic universe.
I'd say, isn't it? Yeah, I love that.
Chris, what's your favourite Taker moment?
Oof.
Avoid WrestleMania if you can, because that will be a little bit that I want to ask in a minute.
Favourite non-Mania moments. One, it was 2009 SummerSlam. CM Punk had just defeated Jeff Hardy, my hero of the time. And then the lights went out. And then the lights came back on. And then CM Punk looked down and Undertaker's hand just came up to choke him. I thought that was like so Taker, and it was amazing. We're going moment and not match, aren't we?
Yeah.
You can say match. Just try and avoid Mania, because I want to ask that in a bit.
Yeah, because one of his best matches is with Angle at No Way Out. That shit's great, unbelievably great.
He did have really, really good chemistry with Kurt, and he cited Kurt as one of his favourite opponents. I think probably for that reason.
He wanted Kurt to end the streak.
He wanted quite a few people to end the streak. I'm sure he was the one who suggested Mark Henry.
Mark Henry, also...
Yeah, him and Mark Henry are really close.
Yeah.
I think Orton was one of them as well.
He wanted Orton to end it because that makes the most sense. That was a Legend Killer gimmick. It's also the first time that the streak was actually explicitly referred to. So that was 2005. Yeah. That was Mania 21. That would have made perfect sense.
I felt sorry for anyone involved in that feud because hepatitis Orton Orton Senior fucking bled all over the fucking cell, and apparently Undertaker was pissed, and I don't blame him. But like, imagine the feeling knowing you've pissed off the Undertaker.
See you later, boys.
Like, well, fucking, you're gonna die. What, in storyline? No.
No. I think my favourite Taker moment.
I have one more.
Oh, go on then.
It was lead up to WrestleMania 27, and I caught this round at my mate's house just before I got the pirated DVD from my brother, and it was when Undertaker had won the Royal Rumble, which, by the way, that Royal Rumble ending with Shawn Michaels is the best ending to any Rumble.
Was that the only time he won it?
Yeah, and him and Shawn literally had like a 10-minute match to end the Rumble. It's like the best ending to any Rumble.
So was that the run up to him facing Batista?
Batista, yeah. By the way, the rest of that Rumble is absolute wank. The only good bits for the last 10 minutes. But they had all three people out. So they had Batista. It was on Raw the night after. You had Batista. You had John Cena. And then inexplicably, for no reason, fucking ECW champion Bobby Lashley. Because totally, Undertaker's gonna fucking challenge for the ECW championship. Sure. But
Because they were on the cover of the game.
yeah, he were on the cover of it. So he came out and he was staring each one down, right? And it was amazing because first of all, he barely gave Lashley any time. He just went on to Lashley and moved right back to Cena. And then like he stared at Cena for like a minute, not for like what felt like a minute, and then just as soon as it looked like he was going to say "I pick you, Cena," turned right to Batista, and it was like, oh my god. But because like in kayfabe, those three are shitting their fucking pants.
Don't pick me, don't pick me, don't pick me.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, fuck.
I think for me, like, the first moment is it's a little bit of Schadenfreude, a little bit. Was the absolute burial of DDP in 2002 with that fucking stalker. I just remember I was watching at a friend's house, and I'd watched the Attitude Era, and obviously, you know, I was programmed to hate WCW, and DDP was this WCW person who was being all weird with Undertaker's wife. And then Undertaker just literally obliterated him. And obviously there was apparently legit heat between the two of them. But that was my first real memory of, oh my god, this man's an absolute fucking psychopath. I love that for some reason. And then moving on from that, it's his match with Jeff Hardy at Raw. Just an absolutely outstanding match. Probably one of the best Raw matches ever. I'd challenge you, certainly one of the top 5.
Top 5. I'm with Cena's brother. Oh.
And it was the fact that he put Jeff Hardy over. Yeah, Jeff Hardy didn't win, but it was at that moment that I realised like the respect that people had for Taker and what Taker could do for a person. Jeff was, you know, a perennial high flyer. You know, nobody really took him seriously. Not in 2002, anyway, 2003. And then from that moment, Jeff was seen as, you know, a legitimate challenger. He wouldn't get the title for a couple of years, but he was seen as a proper championship caliber person, and that was because of the work that he did with the Undertaker. And just
he lost to TNA a couple months later.
Well, yeah, exactly. But it's that I loved about him, the fact that if he thought you were worthy, he'd move fucking mountains for you. And that was the first real time I noticed it. I mean, I was only 13, 14 at the time, so, you know, I'm sure there are other, probably better examples, but that's the one that really stands out to me.
You are?
Garth is about 50.
Hey.
But thing is with Taker, could like, for example, he once absolutely destroyed Angle, and it was sort of in an absolutely disgusting way. Like early on in Angle's career, like he just buried him.
As he was wont to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he wasn't as bad as it was some people, but like people literally had their pushes cut because of him. Apparently that's why Kazani had his push cut.
Kazani.
What was there was Mordecai. Apparently he was cut because his gimmick was too close to the Undertaker's. There was that guy beginning with V. Was it V? Oh, what was his name? That they did one promo. He did one package, and he was supposed to have a WrestleMania match with Taker. And apparently he was just seen as too short to actually have a legitimate match with the Undertaker. So he only ever had one promo, and then that was it. He was never seen again. Never had a match. That was literally it. I'm going to have to try and find him in a minute.
I can't remember.
Do you remember that Devil's Advocate, Sean O'Hare? Not Sean O'Hare, hang on. Who did the Devil's Advocate, I think?
That's Sean O'Hare.
That was Sean O'Hare, yeah.
That was, like, that. I'm surprised that, like, just on the thing of people who got packages and went nowhere. How didn't that take off? That's great.
Did he not have, they dropped him, didn't they?
Yes.
Did he not have did he get injured, or is he not one who got done for like beating up his wife or something like that? It was something, and then he died like not long after.
I don't know,
but it's like It's weird because when you watch that, like Take a Talk, you can tell for most of that sort of the latter part, even like when he come back, it's always been like, how can I make both of us look the very best we possibly can? Which was like at odds with a lot of what was going on at the time, especially with the likes of Triple H, who was just like, put me over, I want to win everything.
I think Taker seemed to be very selective with who he buried, whereas like people like Triple H, like Hulk Hogan, were just sort of like, he's getting over. I should stop that.
Taker was never really bothered about the belt. I don't think he didn't need it.
No, he never really had it long enough to care.
No.
He just sort of, because I think he's sort of, it was above the belt. Like, I don't know.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I was thinking. Like, he didn't need it because there was no. He was the prize for like most people's matches. Like, just the fact that the streak was. Well, the streak was kind of like a title in itself.
Well, that's the thing on going up to WrestleMania 29, where there's triple threat between Sheamus, Randy Orton, CM Punk, and Big Show to see who'd face Taker at Mania. And he's sort of looking at that going, there's only really one good option here.
Also, why would you fight to face Taker? Because like, you don't want to get your ass handed to you.
It's the thing, like, but it was completely unnecessary because the way CM Punk conducted that feud, it didn't need the match, but it still kind of worked because CM Punk can make anything work.
Sorry, guys, I've just found out who that guy was who did that one promo. Hade Vanson.
Who?
I've never even heard of him. What?
If you YouTube Hade Vanson...
Hold on, I'm going to look this up right now.
He did one promo. He was in like a back alley. He did one promo, and he was rumoured to be in a WrestleMania program with The Undertaker, but apparently they got cold feet.
Vade Johnson?
Hade Vanson.
Vanson. Here we go. Vade Hansen.
No, Hade Vanson.
Yeah, Hade Vanson. That's what I've got. I don't need a... I'm not going to buy Stadia, Google. Oh, it's Triple H. Oh.
So...
I do reckon... Oh, yeah, because I actually watched this show.
So what... what was the reason? What was the drop?
Legit, he was too small, apparently.
Jeez.
How tall is he?
No idea. No idea at all, but apparently that's... I mean, look, in my opinion, it would have gone something like Taker absolutely mullering Maven, which is another one of my favourite moments.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, Maven eliminated him from the Rumble.
The Rumble, and Taker just absolutely murdered him for what... just took him backstage, smashed him through the popcorn machine. If ever there was a burial, it was that. It was horrendous.
On YouTube, an episode of FCW with Hade Vanson in it has come up.
There you go. There you go. You can do some research in a bit on Hade Vanson. Our next retrospective can be on the career of Hade Vanson. It'll be a 5-minute podcast.
He cut a promo and went to FCW, and it's done.
So, do we think that he's definitely done now?
No.
I hope so. I actually hope so. For his own fucking sake.
Right. The one thing we learnt from the last ride is that he worships the very ground that Vince McMahon walks on. He said that he'd take a bullet for him. He said that, he'd sees him as a father figure, all this. If Vince comes, and he's always, and Michelle McCool says, if Vince was to come round and say that he needed him, he'd be there like a shot. And Taker, unfortunately, has proved that again and again and again, he will be there to bail out Vince McMahon. For better, for worse. I mean, that unfortunately has led us to that catastrophic Crown Jewel match and that catastrophic Goldberg match. But, he's done it. Can I honestly say that Taker will ever be able to just go, no, Vince, I am actually done? No, they've just done an entire documentary, 5 episodes, about how Taker is searching for that one final match. Are you telling me that he's just completely abandoned that?
It's just the way he was talking, he's just like, it's just, I don't know, it kind of feels quite definitive.
I hope to God it is. Like Chris said, I hope it is, because it's even though it's not that one final match that he wanted, that one belter, trying to recreate those Shawn Michaels matches, those Triple H matches, it is a very, very unique way of, driving off into the sunset on your Harley Davidson. I think, it is unique. It's something that everyone will always remember. What I just hope now that we don't get, another Saudi Arabia match where, we've got The Undertaker taking on Baron Corbin or something really, really... just a match that doesn't need to happen.
Yeah.
Because the man is in so much legitimate pain. After giving the company so much, after giving us as fans so much, he deserves to be able to go out on his terms in a way that he wants without being shepherded back into the ring where...
I still think that end at 33 was just the perfect end.
You said this, Chris.
I said this earlier. And he was like, and Rob was like, nah. And then I was like, yeah. And then now you've agreed with me, so it's just canon now. Great.
I still always said it should have been Kane.
It should have been Kane.
It should be Kane.
Should have been Kane.
They should both go down at the same time.
Legitimately, bro, very quickly, has him and Taker ever actually had a great match?
No.
They've always been sort of just smoke and mirrors sort of brawls.
That can, smoke and mirrors matches can work. That's basically all we've got in the COVID era.
You know what? If Kane was up to scratch, Kane versus Taker in a Boneyard style match would have been fucking incredible.
He's too busy not putting his county into lockdown.
Because he's Kane.
Exactly. COVID isn't going to fuck with Kane.
Tonight, on Sunday. So
it's hard to sort of... how long are we going now? What, half an hour? 40 minutes?
We've done 45 minutes.
Yet, there's still so much to say about Undertaker because...
We haven't even mentioned the streak yet.
That's the thing. It's like there's so much to it and there's so much reverence around the character. Everybody in and out around wrestling knows him. Everybody sort of would love that chance to wrestle him. Like, you see the respect people have for him. And I don't think it's a respect of sort of, oh shit, there's Taker, I have to go and shake his hand. It's like, there's Taker, like, if not for him, amongst others, we wouldn't be here. But I don't know. I think that Boneyard match, to me, I'll happily have that as his going away sort of swan song. Because I enjoyed it. It was just crackers.
It was. It was a good way to end. We need to talk about the streak then. So obviously, we've all got different opinions of, what should have been the end, whether he should have, lost a match, and, which ones were clangers, Giant Gonzalez and King Kong Bundy. In all honesty, going back to what you said, I didn't say that WrestleMania 33 should have been the end. That would have been perfect. Not necessarily the opponents. No, that's harsh. I think Roman could have been the perfect opponent. Unfortunately, it wasn't a good match. And even though, the entire thing with leaving his coat and his jacket and his gloves and hat and everything in the ring, that was perfect. And it felt like a moment. Chris said you were in tears. Honestly, so was I. Because I thought that's it. But I think, personally, he could have retired years before. I think 28, and I said this to you, Chris, before, 28 was the perfect time. The entire match was seen as the end of an era. Okay, why not have that as the end of The Undertaker in the WWE? He's been in the company for 22 years. Okay, you've got the end of Triple H as a full-time competitor, the end of Undertaker as a full-time competitor, and the end of Shawn Michaels, who of course retired 2 years previous. It felt like the moment, because ultimately, what was the end of an era? Nothing. The Undertaker carried on. Triple H just carried on. It didn't have the gravitas it needed. It was a cracking match. have it end there, because in my opinion, and I will defend this till the day I die, Undertaker should not have lost. He should not have been defeated in this streak. We will never see anything like this ever again. Ever in our lifetimes, which is terrifying when I say it out loud. But I think this could have been one of those things in history that we look back on and go, or it could have been.
But,
It
like,
could have
even
been.
in terms of sheer amounts, what was that? 24, 25 WrestleManias. I've never done anything 25 times.
I haven't even had sex 25 times.
And you're 103. Yeah, just I don't know. What's everyone's favorite streak match, apart from Michael's?
Apart from Michael's.
Because to be honest, I think Michael's is just because we'll all just say Michael's.
They're on a little bit of a plinth above. Both 26 and 25 are matches
26 is
in
my
their
favorite
own.
one, personally. 25 is like is an objectively better match, but I'm a story over work rate guy, and the story in 26 was just better for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Streak versus career is going to be inherently more story driven, isn't it? So
Yeah. Also, but like at that point, you're arguing over which 10 out of 10 is better. It's like arguing what's better, Terminator 2 or Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Hey.
Fuck off.
God, are you trying to give him a coronary? What are you doing?
That was bait.
That was pure bait. No,
Oh
it's
my
like
God.
comparing,
That
like
was
comparing-
Tyler bait.
Hey.
Yeah. It's like trying to compare like Terminator 2 to The Shining. Like you're arguing over which classic is better at that point.
So matches other than the two.
Other than Shawn Michaels, yeah.
I'm gonna go the match with Triple H.
Which one? There's three of them.
The one where he came back and he'd cut his hair.
Oh, 28 in Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was just fucking brutal. And it was that's arguably for me one Triple H's best match as well.
Is it? I
One
prefer
off.
to be honest, my favourite Triple H match is Bryan from 30, but that's personal reasons. Rob?
Chris? What do you say, yours?
Um,
I haven't said mine, I just want to hear yours, Steve, first.
Yours is Punk, isn't it, Chris?
No, it's not Punk.
so punk. It's 100% punk. I think his entire trilogy with Triple H is great. There isn't a bad match. You know, they're all different. I think 27 is underrated in all those matches, but I think that's because 28 is so great.
27 is a fucking weird one, isn't it? Because like Taker didn't beat Triple H, he survived him, and then like came back the next year and just killed him.
Yeah, basically, that was the story going into 28, that basically Triple H had done something that no one else had done, and that was force Undertaker to not leave the arena under his own steam. But the finish is great when Triple H just goes for that one last killing blow with the sledgehammer, and Undertaker just drags him in for the Hell's Gate. Oh, it's fucking great. It's not my favourite, because I think, honestly, my favourite is probably going to be 28, but I don't want to say the same as Garth. I really enjoyed that Ric Flair match. Just for the sheer fucking insanity and the lengths that Ric Flair was willing to put his fucking body through at 835 years old.
Like he was at that point, he was only about half the age of Garth, and like.
Hey. I mean, by the time the bell even rang, he was already sweating buckets.
Yeah.
And was was bleeding.
I was just going to say, already wearing the crimson mask, just absolute bollocks. It was great.
Anderson up for some reason and delivered a Triple H Spine Buster. It was just crazy town banana pants, and it's great. Mine's caught between Mania 23 and 24, because Mania 23, like you saw him, and it was like this unbelievable spectacle, and he had a great match with Batista. I say probably it's definitely Batista's best match. And
my brother really likes that match. That match.
It's great. It's like a WWE. It's like the perfect WWE match, if that makes sense. And then, but like Mania 24 against Edge, that's the first time as a wrestling fan. So that's my first WrestleMania after that I had the build up for, that I lived through the build up for, and Taker going after Edge. It was just like the coolest thing to me because Edge was my favorite, Undertaker was my other favorite, Rey Mysterio was injured because he was always injured around this time. And it's the first time I could actually be actively hyped going into a WrestleMania. And of course, I didn't see it until like 3 weeks afterwards because my brother was very lazy about pirating this one. But yeah, just as soon as I saw Undertaker come out in that match, I'm like, oh my god! And like, also like me and Garth have reviewed this match on when we used to do classic segments, and just in kayfabe, Edge doing everything to sort of try and stop the Undertaker's mind games. For example, Michael Cole put over on commentary, Edge as champion gets to choose who comes out first. So instead of taking the adulation of being first out in the main event of WrestleMania, he's going to come out second so he doesn't need to sit through the Undertaker's entrance. I'm like, that is fucking perfect. Because it's so weird. Undertaker never came out first. Ever.
No, ever. No.
Like, in championship matches, he'd always come out second anyway. And then like, they've not only managed to subvert everyone's expectations, they also managed to make Edge look like the biggest heel in the world. And also, Taker's entrance almost killed about 300 people in a segment in like the upper sector of that stadium because the pyro went wrong.
Was that when the firework went into the top row?
Yeah.
Fucking
and like
fire.
It's weird. Taker has a bad history of pyro.
That's another thing we forgot to mention: the fact he got almost burnt alive.
Yeah, it was
He
just
went on to do Hell in a Cell,
and then went on to do an elimination chamber match.
And like you could see, like first of all, you can see him like pouring water over himself, which is like unbelievable. Like how the fuck did he do? And it wasn't a bad chamber match either. That's the thing. And then, which is the best part, imagine being the pyrotech who fucked up on the Undertaker.
Oh my god! Imagine if Undertaker found out it was you as well.
I think Undertaker did because there was only one pyro guy.
My god! Why haven't you got a job anymore? I fried the Undertaker.
I almost killed the Undertaker.
I thought he was already dead. Let's not go into that.
That's not the point. I have a different question for you then. So we've looked at the streak, we've looked at matches and all that. Who was Undertaker's best rival?
Shawn Michaels.
Rival or match?
Rival.
I think with
storyline, match, overarching, Kane. Whoever.
I think with Kane, it's a case of they did that way too much. Like when it came, like for example, when it got to the 2010 matches, just fuck off.
Shane McMahon.
For control of Raw, which he then lost, and then got control of Raw anyway, so it was a pointless match.
No, he got control of SmackDown.
Well, didn't matter, did it, in the end, ultimately? Who gave a shit?
Yeah, right. I still think Shawn, just because like he still had like good rivalries with Shawn, he had good exchanges with Shawn, and then like he has a good match with Shawn in like different eras.
Okay.
Yeah, like he has 10 out of 10s with Shawn. Like,
he does.
Hell in a Cell and the Mania matches, all 10 out of 10. So,
do you think? I mean, I'm with you on one hand, Garth, because growing up, the rivalry was Undertaker versus Kane. That was the whole thing, and then the Brothers of Destruction, which was amazing. Probably one of my most enduring memories of the Undertaker is holding the WCW World Tag Team Championships with Kane. So storyline wise, Kane certainly. Unfortunately, they just kept delivering clangers when it was their thing. I mean, the match at Mania 20 was boring and a bit naff. Their match at Mania 14 was boring and a bit naff, and it went a bit long. They don't tend, and that sort of sullies the rivalry a little bit for me. But storyline wise, I'm completely with you. I don't think this is his greatest feud. It's just a feud I want to put out there. I think his feud with Mankind.
I was just gonna say Mankind, yeah,
was fucking great.
That was great. It was around the time it ended up being Taker's default feud. It's like he has no one to feud with, so we'll throw him with Foley.
Yeah. And, the mind games that Foley used to play as Mankind, the Boiler Room Brawl match was great. The stuff with Paul Bearer, just that entire thing, that entire storyline was fantastic. And, he used to have great... I mean, the Dudley Boys, that was a great feud when he buried Paul Bearer in concrete. Never forget that Undertaker legitimately killed Paul Bearer, although he didn't, apparently, because you can survive that.
He killed Muhammad Hassan a year later.
He did kill Muhammad Hassan, yes.
You saw his head being split on the fucking concrete.
That was... Oh, God, that was so brutal. Such a brutal burial.
Do you remember his Vince McMahon match where, like, Vince McMahon, like, bled like a fucking pig? And, like...
That when he got buried?
Oh my... Yeah,
that was when
Kane.
Undertaker got buried by Kane, yeah. And then came back as the Deadman.
When he had a championship match with Kane, and then the Nexus buried him for some reason. And that was never, ever, ever, ever explained.
What, you mean the WWE fucked up a Nexus storyline? Imagine that. So,
yeah.
Final question for you.
Can I quickly just put a couple things out there? One, my enduring memory of the Brothers of Destruction is them destroying MVP and Mr. Kennedy on a random SmackDown. And
I forgot about the thing he had with Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Didn't Mr. Kennedy smash his head in with his microphone?
Yeah, because Mr. Kennedy was doing the whole "I've beaten 6 world champions in the 6 months I've been here" type thing, and it was working. And then Taker came along,
absolutely obliterated him.
I want to throw a feud out there that like no one ever talks about, but it's great. It's the Punk feud. That was great.
Shock! Chris picks up the CM Punk feud.
I can't remember it.
He essentially started fucking with the urn.
Is this when they were both on SmackDown?
Yeah, no, they were on Raw. It was leading up to
Mania 29.
Mania 29.
I really can't remember.
And he stole Undertaker's urn, and he's cut this promo backstage where he was like throwing the urn upside down and they upside down all around, and he was like, "Oh, it'd be a shame if anything happened to this Undertaker. It's a very sacred urn to you." And then at the end, he was like, "Oh, I dropped it. Oh, butterfingers." It was great.
Is this when he stole Paul Bearer's ashes as well?
Oh, that one wasn't the best part. But then again, apparently, like both Taker and Taker, Bearer's family, and Punk were all like Paul Bearer probably won this, but also like if you've ever seen Paul Bearer's family, they're not the best.
Did he open it at any point? And did the big beam of light come out?
Oh my god!
No,
that was amazing.
No. That's officially like no longer kayfabe, I'm afraid.
What?
Oh, the Duracell urn.
Yeah, the urn with the light bulb in it. That's not been a thing since like the fucking 90s.
It's such a shame. That's pretty much a staple of Undertaker's character. Okay, final question, potentially a contentious one. I'm going to start with you, Garth. Do you think, okay, it's a multifaceted question. Do you think, A, The Undertaker should have lost the streak? Do you think he should have carried on as, however many, If you think not, do you think Brock Lesnar was the right person to break it? And if not, who do you think should have broken it?
I think maybe, but I think yes, it should have ended, but I think that should have been the end. Brock, I suppose at the time he was the only legitimate person. If the crowd and WWE had built up Roman Reigns, I would have been happy for him to do it. But no, I think it should have been done, and I think he should have been, when he ended his career, that should have been him going out, the streak's done, his powers have diminished, Kane defeated him in a buried alive match. But Kane buried himself with Taker, and they died together as brothers.
Kane
Fade to black. Done.
And then turns his fire on himself.
That is both the most amazing yet saddest thing I've ever seen. I've heard you book.
I've had that shit in my locker for years.
Kane fucking commits Sudoku. It's not Sudoku. What's the name for it?
what the Japanese art of.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. It always seemed to me like it made the most sense for Kane to be the one to take Undertaker out, but at the same time ended his own career as well.
It'd be a bit morbid though. Like, you definitely have people complaining, going, "Someone killed themselves on wrestling. My son is scarred for life."
But those people can get in the fucking sea.
Amazing.
Fucking triggered assholes.
Chris, same question.
Okay, the way I see it, there were a few opportunities where Undertaker's streak, losing a streak, would mean something. And, like, for example, I jokingly said earlier that I think Punk should have ended the streak. I don't. Like, I don't think that would have worked. Like, I think the only time it would have worked.
It would have just got heat on Punk.
That's it. But his thing, what the heat is the reason Undertaker should ever lose. The only reason Undertaker should ever lose a streak. So, for example, I think him losing to Lesnar was a stroke of genius because WWE had booked Lesnar to lose twice, which he shouldn't have done with Lesnar. He got him to lose to fucking Triple H and John Cena, both of which on the biggest stages because he lost at his first Mania back and then his first match back, which is not how you book fucking Brock Lesnar. So then, like, as soon as he beat Taker, he became... So it's like in Mega Man when you beat a boss and you take on his powers. Brock Lesnar kind of did that, where, like, he's still kind of this unstoppable beast, where, like, all his matches must watch because you're like, can this person beat the beast? So I think that was actually a bit of a genius move. I kind of agree, like, a perfect time to go out would have been with Triple H, but I don't think Taker should have lost. Like, definitely shouldn't have lost, especially since Shawn Michaels was referee. You can't have the streak. You can't lose the streak on
The click.
Yeah, on a bullshit finish. Honestly, if he didn't get beaten by Lesnar, I think Wyatt would have been a good person to beat him at the time. He was still fairly hot. This would have saved him in the same way it saved Lesnar. But also, if you remember when Roman Reigns beat him and came out the night after and stood in the ring for, it must have been 5 minutes, and he didn't say anything because the crowd were booing him. He was booing him so hard.
That was the perfect moment for him to cut an absolute badass heel promo, and he would have been the most hated and best heel.
He didn't need to cut a promo because what he did was perfect. He just went on the mic and went, "This is my yard now," and put them down and walked out. That was perfect. And then we just continued to destroy him for the rest of the year. It was weird, like, because the same year he had that feud with Cena, which sort of, you were like, oh yeah, Cena is much better, especially on the mic.
It was just like that time with Reigns. Obviously going on a tangent here, but it was the perfect time to turn that guy heel. It's just like they did that. It's like the blind to it. It's the same when Cena was at that point where he was at the tip of being the perfect time to turn heel, but they were like, nah, we're not doing it. Think of the children.
Imagine this 2008, 2009 Cena beat Undertaker at Mania.
Exactly. Imagine their fucking heat the next night.
That's actually a recommendation we can make, is Adam Blampier's booking of how the streak should have ended, and it was against John Cena. And it was absolutely perfect because it also achieved a John Cena heel turn. It was like the most perfectly booked thing.
Yeah, but does he go out in a buried alive match with Kane?
Right. Just because it's not your story doesn't mean it's not a good story.
Do you know what I actually made that in the storyline once on one of the WWE games.
That's kind of.
God.
Do you still have it on your like memory card? Because like
nah.
one day Rob can come round and you can show us the story.
It's long gone. I might try and recreate it.
Recreate it and like film it because I want to see this.
I've always said that Undertaker shouldn't be beaten, and I've said it on this podcast.
I've heard you say it like 5 times tonight.
I know it still upsets me to this point, but I think, again, 28 was the perfect time for him to go out. I think he should have won that match. The results say the same, and that should have been the end. If you were going to end the streak at some point, I think, I know it wasn't really a streak at this point at 13-0, but Randy Orton as the legend killer would have been an absolutely perfect place to end it. Again, I know it's only 13-0, but Orton was very much in that legend killer gimmick style. I think that would have worked. I think Michaels at 25 could have been one. Kane, for storyline reasons and for all the history they've shared, would have been perfect if they could
and then
deliver.
kill himself.
Yeah, and apparently kill himself and bury himself alive with the Undertaker's corpse, which is a little bit morbid, but sort of hampered by the fact that they can't really wrestle together. I agree with you, Chris. I think Punk would have been good. I think Lesnar would have been good, but I don't think the way they booked him around that time worked.
So it was weird with the Lesnar one because, of course, Taker got concussed. The match just ended up being Lesnar chucking Taker around as carefully as possible. And it's sort of like Black Panther, just like, is this your champion?
At least we didn't have him go out at either of those Saudi shows.
Oh my god, can you imagine if the streak ended or the match? Oh my god, his last match, fucking Goldberg match. Jesus.
I remember, like, the first time he came back at Saudi show, it was super weird because it was the first time he hadn't turned up at a Mania. It was at 35. 35, and he didn't turn up. And then he was booked against Chris Jericho, who had just had a match in New Japan. But then that match got cancelled, and Rusev was inserted for some fucking reason.
And then Jericho left.
Yeah, when Jericho, he was in that Rumble, actually.
He was in the Greatest Royal Rumble, and that was his last match for the WWE.
Yeah.
Jesus. Last thing, I think you're right, Chris. And not because I'm a massive Bray Wyatt mark. It was a simple storyline. Undertaker was the old face of fear, and Bray Wyatt was professing himself to be the new face of fear. I mean, they both have very similar gimmicks. Surely that would have been a perfect passing of the torch. But there we are. Right, guys. Are there any closing thoughts on the career of the Undertaker and genuinely just what we've genuinely been chatting shit about? Garth, any more people burying themselves alive?
Nah. Just I think it's kind of sad because this is literally the end of an era of wrestling that no longer exists. He is the last god. He is the last sort of gunslinger, as we used to call him. But it's also good to reminisce like we have and look back at this fucking body of work that he's done, and he will never go away. He will be there, up there with people like Bruno and Ric Flair and all those others. He is a Mount Rushmore character. It'll be interesting to see if he goes in the Hall of Fame next year, because he doesn't strike me as the type of guy who really gives a shit about that. The only time he's turned up was when he did that thing for Paul Bearer, 2014, I think it was. He didn't even say anything. He just came out and did the sort of salute. But nah, it's incredible that someone stayed at one company for 30 years, stayed on top for 30 years, had so many
30 years,
so many memorable sort of moments. Just amazing. Just top two, top three, whatever. Whoever your favorite is, Taker is next. That's how I would probably put it. So Bret Hart's my favorite, Taker will probably be next.
Absolutely. Chris, what about you?
When it comes to WWE stuff, I can't think of people I like more than, like, in terms of like pure WWE bollocks. Like, I don't think anyone was better than Taker. It's weird because he literally never been like the guy in the company. Like, it went like to Hulk Hogan, to Liga for like 6 months, to Hart, to Rock Austin, to no one for a while, then Cena, then Roman, then Brock, etc. He's never been the guy, but he's always the one you put in there to legitimize the guy, apart from Hogan. Again,
he's like the stabilizer.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's the control. Like in any experiment, you have like that one constant, and he's there. Like the only like guy who was the guy he never had a proper feud with was Cena.
Mm-hmm.
But like WWE wanted a person like Batista in there with Taker. People who need to get better in there with Taker. Like they put Big Show on the road with Taker because they were like, Big Show, you're not up to snuff. You're right.
Jeff Hardy had his match with Taker, and then he was champion like the next 6 months or something.
Exactly, and like if you go on Taker's bad side, don't get me wrong, you're fucked. CM Punk was fucked after he crossed Taker, but if Undertaker does shine to you, you're going to the fucking top. Apart from if you're Rikishi, but and it's super weird, like because all this has happened, but like when you think about it, a lot of Undertaker's biggest moments are people two of Undertaker's biggest moments is throwing Rikishi off the Hell in a Cell and throwing Mankind on top of the cell,
which we haven't even really mentioned.
Yeah. And like, so his biggest moments are like other people taking bumps for him. This is how, like, quite frankly, it's how you should do it if you're playing smart.
The fact that he wrestled that King of the Ring 98 match and he'd already got a broken foot.
Yeah.
And then he jumped down into the cage, which was baffling, to see if Foley was all right. And it's like, you've got a broken foot. Don't land on it, you idiot. But
it's when like the bits where he comes up through the ring and all that sort of stuff as well. Just all that sort of highly pantomime stuff. I loved like the stuff you mentioned before, where he floated up to fucking heaven.
Amazing.
Like you just accept it as part of the sort of mythos.
We don't really get that anymore. I mean, we've got the Firefly Funhouse and that sort of thing, but that's nothing. You know, that's nothing on the Undertaker stuff and the way that used to be. And we're never, ever, ever, we'll have great wrestlers, we'll have great in-ring technicians, but we'll never, ever, ever have a character like The Undertaker, someone who was so, you listen to anyone talk about The Undertaker, and he is almost universally revered by absolutely everyone, not only as a wrestler, not only as a person, but also as a locker room leader, as a mentor, as someone that you can go to and ask advice from. He just sounds like an absolutely stand-up dude, basically. And it's a little bit sad that, like I've said, he didn't get that one match that he clearly craved. But if this is the end, then thank you, Taker, because you've given us 30 years of just mental memories. Absolutely mental memories. WrestleMania will not be the same without it. And
he's gonna be one of those people that, like, because like my kids they'll ask about wrestling and they'll watch the odd bit, but he's gonna be one of the people that will ultimately, if they decide to get into it, will be enthralling them, and they'll want to watch his stuff regardless of how old it is.
Absolutely, a lot of the Undertaker stuff is timeless, especially some of those later WrestleMania matches, probably from. Well, even some of the older ones, that, the X7 one is great. Probably wouldn't go back and watch the Big Boss Man one from 15. That's a bit of a wet fart. But, like we already mentioned, Ric Flair, the Randy Orton matches, and then we go on to, Batista and Edge and their great matches as well. That match against Edge, just the Hell's Gate, such an underrated submission from The Undertaker. It's fucking great. I love it. Anyway, I think we should probably hold it there. Thank you so much for listening, guys. We really do appreciate it. We hope you've enjoyed our little trip down memory lane, talking all things Undertaker. We hope we've done it some manner of justice, though. Like Garth said, we could do an entire 4 or 5 hour podcast on everything that Undertaker has given to the WWE, their favourite memories, and all the things that he's done. But we'll hold it there. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. Go and subscribe to the podcast anywhere that you get your podcasts, whether it be Apple, whether it be iTunes, Google Play, wherever we are there. Go and check out the website, www.podmania.co.uk, where you can check out our match rating, view all the archived podcast episodes, features, reviews, all that kind of nice things. You can talk to us on Twitter at PodMania. Talk to me on Twitter at RealRobGoodwin. Garth, where can they find you?
At Garthamania.
Chris?
Microsoft Technical Support.
Fantastic. And we will all end on the thing that's most appropriate, I think, for this podcast, and that is thank you, Taker. We'll see you again, same time, next week.
You've been listening to the PodMania Pro Wrestling Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at PodMania, Facebook at PodMania Podcasts, and YouTube and Instagram at Real PodMania. And check out the website podmania.co.uk. Until next time, wrestling fans.